All right, wonderful. Well, thanks again for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. So in order to fully participate in this session, I'm going to ask that you join into my Nearpod lesson with the code you see on the screen or the link that I'll post in the chat box. I appreciate everybody's patience and flexibility. We had to hunt down the right Teams link to get me in here. So again, thank you for your patience. We'll make sure to have time to get through everything. This is Nearpod for our core subject areas, specifically highlighting science and math content. So we will be going through both science and math content examples. And you will be able to see where you can pull lessons, videos, and activities from our library, as well as create some of your own. Again, the best way for you to experience this lesson is to join me with the link or the code. You can go to nearpod.com or log into your Nearpod accounts and enter this code RXGKA, or you can click on the link that I've posted in the Teams chat box. I am going to leave my camera off so that we can just go ahead and focus on the screen that I'm sharing. Not only am I hoping that you can keep an eye on that screen, but that you're also able to join me in the Nearpod lesson itself. All right, great. It looks like we have about 15 people in the lesson so far. I'm going to give it just about 1 more minute to make sure that you are set up and situated, that you can see the Teams screen that I'm sharing from my side, and also that you're able to join me in the Nearpod lesson with the link or the code. Great work, everybody. I can see that participant list ticking up, and I know we have about 30 or so people in this session, so if you haven't had the chance to join in, please do so now. All right, now remember that Nearpod at its core is a presentation and teaching tool that can allow learning to become a lot more engaging, interactive, and fun too. If you're just starting out with your Nearpod journey, remember we have a lot of great resources on our website. This session is going to dive a little bit deeper into really figuring out how you can leverage tools and content within Nearpod to support math and science instruction. When you get into the lesson, you'll see this first slide, Nearpod in the science classroom. We're also going to be covering Nearpod in the math classroom as well. So this is kind of a hybrid of both of those core content subject areas, but how you can design lessons for your specific content area, and you'll be given a lot of different examples to choose from today. All right, let's go ahead and continue on. So if you would like to take notes along with me, you can feel free to do that. That note-taking tool is going to be available in the upper right-hand corner of the screen where you've joined me in the Nearpod lesson. If you click on that note-taking tool, you can choose where those notes are sent. And at the very end of today's training, when I end this lesson, you will automatically receive a PDF version of the notes that you took, all of the slides and information from this presentation, and anything else that was included in the lesson. If you're somebody like me that likes to take notes while you learn and to go back and review later, I highly recommend doing this as we're working together as a group today. All right, now here's our first activity. Please select the statement that best describes your Nearpod knowledge. So choose from A, B, or C. No right or wrong answers here. Is just going to help drive my instruction going forward. I'm going to flip from the student view, which is what we're seeing all together right now, over to the teacher view so I can see your data coming through. I'll start this activity for you and give you a couple of seconds to answer. Again, go ahead and choose which one is closely describing your knowledge with Nearpod. And if you want to grab the reference media that's linked in the corner of the screen, you can pull that up. That'll take you to our Nearpod resources page and our blog. You can always find more information there. If you are brand new to Nearpod, just know that this is a live synchronous Nearpod lesson that I've had you join in today. You are engaging in this as a student or as a participant would, and I am leading this lesson like a teacher or a facilitator would. So you're sort of seeing both sides of this lesson simultaneously. Notice that I'm able to provide you with some formative assessment tools and activities. Just like this one, this is our poll activity in Nearpod, and I'm able to gather data in real time. Nearpod is an extremely versatile tool. There's a number of different ways that you can use it. And for those of you that are a little bit more familiar with Nearpod, you probably know that already. No matter where you are in your Nearpod journey, though, I am confident you're going to walk away learning a lot of new things from this session. We're really getting into how you can explore design principles to create lessons for specific content. In this session, we're specifically highlighting math and science, and I'm going to give you some examples of activities that you can engage with and practice. And then we're going to talk about how you can select Nearpod features to complement your higher order questioning experience. All right. Let's keep moving right along. I'll be checking the chat box periodically, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to post those there. Now, as a quick refresher, remember that there's a number of different things that you can do with Nearpod in terms of creating lessons. We have a Nearpod library that has thousands of lessons, videos, and activities that are pre-made and ready to go for your students. You can pick and choose what content you utilize from that library. You can then add copies of those to your personal Nearpod account and use them exactly how they're designed, or make edits and changes to those lessons to tweak them as needed. You can upload your own files and resources into a Nearpod lesson. You can create your own slides in the platform and using Google Slides if you have that option. And you can utilize videos as well. We've got videos that are already saved and ready to go. You can create your own interactive videos from YouTube or with your own files. So again, that versatility piece really comes into play here. There's lots of different things that you can do with Nearpod. And what we like to say with Nearpod is that practice makes progress. A little bit of practice goes a really long way. If you give this a try and just start creating or editing your own lessons, you'll get the hang of it in no time. And it'll also hopefully save you tons of time and allow you to provide differentiated lessons for each and every one of your unique learners. All right, now here is our next activity for you to complete. This is our Collaborate board activity. You're given some reference media here to review as needed. But I would like for you to answer this question. So what key factors of science and math instruction would you like to incorporate into your Nearpod lessons? Take a minute to think about that question and then share your thoughts on the Collaborate board now. You can add text at the bottom of the screen, and you can also add in media as you wish. I'll give everybody just a minute to complete this activity. All right, great. I'm starting to see your answers popping up. If you have already posted, you can read through the posts that are going live on your screen. Just keep one thing in mind. All of these Nearpod activities have different settings that can be adjusted. So in this particular activity, you can pick and choose how students see the posts that come through. You can approve posts before they go live. You can include the option to have students add media to their posts. You can also give them the chance to respond to each other's comments. And you can give likes or hearts as well. So students can interact with these and give likes to the ones that maybe they have something in common with, they agree with, it resonates with them. So you can practice the same thing too. Awesome, super cool science experiments, exit tickets, vocabulary, great. Videos, visuals, work examples, interactive activities, these are great. All right, well, the good news is that you're going to be able to do all of these things utilizing the Nearpod platform. And soon you'll get to see some examples of what those can look like and how they can look, sound, and feel for you and your students. So some strategies you're using in your content areas, what are they? You've already started sharing some of those out with the group. And you posted a lot of these things on the Collaborate board, right? So experimentation, explanations, explaining thinking, inquiry, asking questions, simulations, maybe real world connections and observations. And these can be for both math and science instruction. So Nearpod is meant to allow you to not have to always reinvent the wheel. All of the things that you included and said on that Collaborate board can be found in the Nearpod library ready to go. But then in addition to that, you can, of course, always include your own content, your own examples, and put everything into the Nearpod platform. Remember that Nearpod can really be that one-stop shop for everything that students will need all in one place. And you can pull all that great, rigorous content from different locations and put it into the singular Nearpod lesson so students can access all the content there. So let's start to go through some examples, all right? First, we're going to focus on some science examples. Now, here are some lessons that we have from the Nearpod library. These are going to be hyperlinked, so you can actually click on these and open them up in a separate window or tab. When you go into the Nearpod library, you can preview any lessons that you want. You can see what students will experience when they complete them. Just always make sure if you want to use the lesson in any way, shape, or form, that you add a copy of it to your personal Nearpod account so that you can launch it from there or make changes before launching. So take a minute to grab any of these examples that are standing out to you. These should be student-paced examples that are hyperlinked from our Nearpod library. And later on your own time, you can spend a few minutes going through these just to see what type of science lessons we do offer. We work with a lot of great partners and brands. We also have a lot of great original content, and everything is meticulously organized and curated by our Nearpod team. All right, so hopefully you're able to grab a couple of those examples. They should have opened up in separate windows that you can go back to review later on. So if you do teach science, you can grab these. We'll have another slide like this for math in just a few minutes. Now, within these lessons, you're going to start to find some very interesting and highly usable activities for your students to complete. These are going to communicate questions, explanations, information, and arguments. They're also inherently going to give all students a voice in the classroom discussions, like that collaborate board activity, for example. Remember that you can embed resources to cite, examine, or observe as web content or as reference media. Anything that has a web URL can be embedded into Nearpod. And this can also allow for multiple means of representation. So let's see what these actually look like in action. So here's our first sample activity for the day. It says matter can change states when kinetic energy is increased and decreased, and then it's going to give you some directions. What I want for you to do is read through these directions on your own, then hide the directions by clicking this blue instructions tab, and then start to drag and drop these labels into wherever you think they belong on this diagram or utilizing this graphic organizer, okay? So read through the instructions on your own and then utilize the drag and drop activity to put the text labels where they belong on this diagram. I'm going to give you a few seconds to try this. And of course, it's okay if you don't get it exactly right. We're going to go through these examples a little bit quickly just because there are many of them. So if you don't completely finish, that's okay. But just play around with these tools and see what an activity like this could be like for science instruction. So far in this presentation, you've experienced a few different types of Nearpod activities. This is the first one that's really content specific. This is our drag and drop activity. What you're probably noticing, or at least hopefully noticing, is that all of these activities are designed differently. They're also going to collect different types of student data. One of the things I really love the most about this drag and drop activity, and it's going to be the same thing with the draw it, is that I'm able to actually get a window into what you're doing in real time. So I'm seeing the text labels that you're moving. I'm able to see if you're adding additional text or drawing or annotating on this slide. I can see when your work has been submitted. I can also see if you haven't started working yet. So I could check in with you. I could address misconceptions. I could highlight student work. And I can share out any of these with you as well. So it's a great way to kind of have students get a window into what their peers are doing. All right, great work trying out this drag and drop activity. And if you don't teach science, that's okay. You could probably start to get some ideas of how you might use an activity like this one for math instruction as well. All right, we're going to keep moving in about 10 more seconds, so finish up. It's okay if you're not completely done. The drag and drop activity, you can always add whatever image you want to the background. We also have different charts that you can utilize that are pre-made. And you can have students drag and drop and organize either text labels or pictures, so they can add in images as well. All right, nice job. Let's go to the next sample activity for science. This time it says, how do humans impact the environment both positively and negatively? Include a picture. You will need to post twice, and please respond to someone else's post. So it's giving a lot more specific instructions for this particular Collaborate board. In order to add in a picture, you're going to click this little mountain and sun icon in the media options at the bottom in the text bar. When you click on that, you're going to be able to upload with a Google image safe search or add in an image from your computer or your drives. So take a minute to think about environmental impacts, and then go ahead and post maybe just one. You don't need to post two just to save time, but try to include a picture as well. And then you can respond to others' posts by giving likes if it's something that you agree with. There also is an option in the Collaborate board to allow students to actually type responses or add in comments to posts as well. One other setting that you can include in the Collaborate board that can be really helpful is the ability to have students post in different columns. So instead of just posting on the board in general, they're able to post and organize and put their posts in different organized columns. Kind of changes the way that the Collaborate board can be utilized, which is cool. All right, look at these pictures popping up. Nice work. I can see some of you responding to others' posts. Some of you maybe are deleting or editing your posts, changing your mind. It's also a setting you can adjust in this Collaborate board activity. Now we could spend some time discussing these and having you elaborate on what you posted. I even see some moving images, GIFs or GIFs, whatever you like to call them. And adding in media really brings the Collaborate board to life. This is also one of the only activities where students can see others' work in one place without the teacher actively sharing it out. But if I wanted to just go back and view this in the data report, I could do that too. Remember that all of the data that's being collected from these activities are going to be saved and stored in the data reports. So I can always go back and pull those, and we could review that work later on if necessary. All right. It looks like everybody's had a chance to try this out. I still see a few more posts coming in, but we're going to go ahead and keep moving. Again, hopefully this is getting you thinking about the types of activities you might want to include, how you can tweak and adjust these activities in Nearpod to really address what it is that you're teaching, and get you thinking creatively and outside of the box on how to actually utilize Nearpod in classroom instruction. So you can also use Nearpod interactive media, what we like to call content, for things like modeling, interpreting, and observing phenomena. So some of the activities that we're going to highlight here are the Fet simulations, the VR field trips and 3D models, and again, packaging up web content into lessons for a seamless instructional experience. Anything that you want your students to access from the web that has a web link or a URL can be embedded into Nearpod, and it can again all be in one place. Just want to reiterate that point one more time. Sometimes even our most experienced Nearpod users forget that you can put all that great content into a Nearpod lesson. All right, let's try out a few more activities. This is an interactive video. So I'm going to choose to play the video on my own. I can also give you the option to play the video and pause and start it on your own too. But since we're together as a group, I'm going to select that the teacher plays this video, and you just turn your attention to my screen. Now notice that there are activities embedded in this science video that are already pre-made and ready to go. This is again our interactive video activity, and it's going to have video content within it. It's going to take watching videos from passive learning to active learning. Students are going to be prompted to complete activities within the video itself. Those can also, of course, always be tweaked and adjusted by you. Let's do a sample of this. We're not going to watch the whole video, but we're going to watch up until that first activity and then maybe just a little bit more. Here we go. So again, you're watching the video through Teams, but be prepared to answer the questions on your screens. All right, now here is that activity embedded into the video. It says, how much do you already know about matter? A lot, a little, or not much? So you can simply just answer by typing your response in the text box on the screen. And as you answer, I'll watch your participation climb up. I can see that percentage. I can scroll down and I can see what you've answered, and I can share those out with the group. All right, this is awesome. Now I could go ahead and give you some time to finish this up. We could respond and talk about this right here in the middle of the video, or we could just go ahead and keep watching. Let's watch a little bit more of this video so that you can see what a science video that comes from our library could be like. We've got many, but this is just one example.
Everything? Everything. This shoe, matter. Places, matter. Little piece of dirt stuck in the sole? Matter. Matter is anything that takes up space. Measure the amount of matter in an object. Measurement called matter. My chair has a greater mass than your glasses. This penny, less mass than my shoe. Okay, but what's matter made of? Are you serious? I want to know. Matter is made of a tiny particles called atoms. Atoms that are bonded together are called molecules. Water is made up of a whole bunch of water molecules. Wait, water is matter too? Everything is matter. Water, air, rocks. But I can't just...
All right, I'll pause it right there, and you can see this video will continue to go through that explanation. Then, of course, there'll be a few more activities. We have two different types of activities in interactive videos. One is an open-ended question, like you just saw, and the other one is a multiple choice activity, very similar to the poll. All right. Let's go ahead and keep going. Now, here we have a Fet simulation, the next content piece that I want you to experience. We have a number of different Fet simulations already built into Nearpod, and you could, of course, always copy and paste links to Fet simulations into Nearpod as web content as well. And these are going to be those interactive simulations where you can adjust all of the different settings and tools here and go ahead and play around with these things. And you can give students more instructions. You can preempt these with other slides, but they're pretty cool and you can interact with these. So take a minute to see if you can adjust all these settings and tools and play with this Fet simulation. Now, this is content that comes from Nearpod, or essentially media. So this is going to be a little bit different. We keep media and activities in two separate categories within the Nearpod library, because this is going to be something that students can utilize and engage with, but it's not necessarily going to be collecting student data. So while students can go ahead and utilize these, and maybe they take screenshots and upload them into an activity afterwards, this particular Fet simulation is not going to actively collect or store student assessment data. So we kind of put it into its own separate category under media. All right, take another 30 seconds to utilize this particular Fet simulation. And if you teach science, I would assume that you're pretty familiar with Fet simulations like this. So just a great concept, being able to embed it into a Nearpod lesson. And then if you wanted to get more creative, then adding activities after that to kind of dive deeper into what these Fet simulations are trying to accomplish. I'm getting a little bit of background noise. If you don't mind just putting yourself on mute and then just utilizing the chat box if you have any questions. I see that there's possibly a hand raised. So if you just don't mind utilizing the chat for questions, that would be great. All right, nice job, everybody. So these Fet simulations can be super cool, really giving students a way to break this down and test out all these different settings within these Fet simulation experiments. All right, we're going to keep going. So now this would be an activity that you could add on to a Fet simulation. So you would need to make sure students know how to capture screenshots on their devices or on their computers. And so after they complete the Fet simulation or they work on that, they can take a screenshot of that. And then you add a drawing activity where they could upload their Fet simulation image into this Draw It and maybe elaborate on what they did or highlight or add text to explain their thinking. So no need to do this right now, but this just gives you an idea of how you could pair together a Nearpod activity with a piece of Nearpod content like the Fet simulations. All right, we're going to switch gears to math content now. I'm going to go ahead and check the chat. Are there any questions at all about anything we've covered so far? Yes, so somebody asked, where do I put my answer during the video on Teams? Because the lesson just says up front. Yep, that's a great question. So during the video, because I said teacher plays and I made that selection, it'll prompt students to look up at the screen or look at the shared, place where everybody's watching the video together. When the activity, though, pops up, it should have automatically come back up in the Nearpod lesson. And if it didn't come back up, what I would recommend is just refreshing the window. Sometimes if a Nearpod activity gets stuck or doesn't look quite right for both teachers and students, just remind them to refresh the window, and that will normally fix the problem. But yes, in the interactive video, even if the students are watching the video all together as a group, those activities will pop up on their screens and in the Nearpod lesson when those little blue dots pause the video from playing. Great question. Any other questions before we keep moving? Hopefully these activities are starting to get you really excited about what you can use in Nearpod. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your question. All right. And so we are going to switch gears just a bit and now talk a little bit more about some math content and give you some sample math activities to think about and try. So let's go ahead and do that now. So using Nearpod to facilitate mathematical discourse is a really great option. This can give all students a voice in classroom discussions and prompt them to engage in the work. You can embed resources into these different activities to scaffold instruction or communication and give students those additional supports. And you can attach compelling problems, images, infographics, and more to spark conversations. So let's see some examples of this. Here's our first example. Oh, wait, before we get to our examples, here are some sample lessons from the library. Just like we did with science, now you have some hyperlinked examples of lessons for math. So if you teach math and you want to go ahead and take a look at these, you have a combination of videos, activities, and full complete lessons for math. And again, you can see that they're made with different partners and brands. So if any of these are standing out to you, you can click on them. They'll open up in a separate window or tab for you to review later on. And of course, you can always go into the library to search for more content there too. All right, I'll give you another couple seconds to grab any of these sample activities. These should be student-paced Nearpod lessons from our library that you can look through and review. All right, great, okay. So now let's take a look at some of these examples. So here we have a geometry example. So what is the length of this rectangle? What is the width of this rectangle? And how do you know? This is a drawing activity. So we have some hyperlinked instructions here if you need that. If I hide the instructions, I'll see the additional content here, and I can go ahead and start to answer these questions. I can utilize all the drawing tools at the bottom of the screen to highlight, annotate, draw, anything that I need to do here to complete my answer. I also have a text box that I can add to explain my thinking or add in numbers or any other labels. So kind of similar to the drag and drop activity, but this time you're just going to be annotating on this particular shape and answering these questions. When I flip over to the student side, or the teacher side, I should say, I can see you starting to work on this, and I'll give you a few seconds to complete it. Again, you don't need to get it right or wrong, but just use the drawing tools and see what an activity like this would be like in the Draw It activity. All right, awesome. I can see you labeling. I can see you adding equations, Some of you are writing with the drawing tools. Some of you are typing by adding text. These are looking awesome. And again, I can always go back and I can review what you've done. I can click on one of these and I can actually share it out with the group. So if I wanted to pull something up and highlight all the great work that you're doing, I could share this with the entire class. Another great thing that I can do is I can also give feedback to you directly in this particular activity. This is currently the only activity where right now we can give you direct feedback from teacher to student. So if I wanted to go ahead and highlight something here, I could give you some feedback. I could let you know that you're on track and that you're doing great. I could add in my own drawings or my own text. And I could allow you to see that as you're working on this. Okay, so again, this is going to allow me to address misconceptions, check in with my students, show them that they're doing a good job, and I can share this work out with all of you or just with the individual student. Pretty cool, right? And then I'll see that I'm giving feedback from the teacher side on this particular student's drawing activity. All right, these are looking great. And again, I could spend some time taking a look at all of your work here, sharing this out with the group, providing feedback, or I can pull this up from the report later on. Nice work. The drawing activity defaults to a blank background, so there's so many different ways that you can use this. You can also add in images, you can also add in text or any other graphic organizer in the background for students to draw or annotate on. All right, now here's another drawing example. This time it breaks it down just a little bit more. So it says, while we're waiting, maybe this could be like a warm-up or some kind of beginning of your day activity for your math classroom. So giving students a chance to try this out, maybe while students are filing in, etc. It says, and it gives you this word problem. Carmela says that 3/6 is more than 2/3 because 3 pieces is more than 2 pieces. Do you agree with Carmela? Now you're given this reference media to use if needed, so that kind of scaffold or support is built in. And you're prompted to explain why or why not with pictures and words. So this time we have a blank background in the Draw It, like I was just mentioning, and I can use all these different tools, including this media. And if you click on these 3 dots, you can even add in videos or GIFs. So you have all those different options at the bottom of the screen, and you can explain if you agree with Carmela and why or why not. So give this drawing activity a try. There are a couple of Nearpod activities that allow for students to record their responses. So in the open-ended question and the collaborate board, that is something that students can add to, videos, recordings, etc. But in this particular activity, you can add in images, GIFs, or GIFs. You can also add in recordings too. All right, great. I see some of you working on shapes to show why you agree with Carmela and why not. Some of you are just saying yes or no. I'm seeing text. I'm seeing descriptions. This is awesome. And again, I could go in and I could provide that feedback directly to you since this is another drawing activity. We could discuss this as a group, or I could just check in with you or go back to review your work later on. I love the drawing activity because it can really allow students to showcase their creativity by including kind of this art component where they're prompted to write and draw. It's a cool way for them to really get creative with it. Cool. Some of you are even pulling that image that was from the reference media, maybe as a screenshot, and now you're annotating on that to show that you do not agree. What a great idea. See how creative students can get when it comes to utilizing this drawing activity? Pretty cool, right? All right, we're going to go ahead and keep moving on. Everybody's doing an awesome job working on this. So now we have another example. I think this is our last sample activity. So this one has a slide with some directions to kind of preempt the activity that's coming next. So sort of setting us up for learning. So it says, let's take a trip to a candy store. Think about which products are easiest to find the total number of and why. So then you can go ahead and you can start to utilize these questions to think about it as you complete this activity. Now, this is another piece of Nearpod content. So it's not going to be something that students are necessarily answering, but it's going to be something that they can engage with that really makes learning fun. So I'm going to go to the next activity. This is a virtual reality field trip. And this is a field trip to a candy store. So again, you're thinking about which the items here you'd be able to count easily and why. So maybe you're noticing these set up in a grid. Maybe you're noticing some other things on these shelves. Pretty cool, right? So these virtual reality field trips can be used for really anything. They're so engaging. They're really cool. Most of them come from Google 360 Cities. And even though they're these immersive kind of field trip type activities, you can prompt students with questions like we did. So they're thinking about math, how they can count or measure these objects, and why it might be easy to do so. Pretty neat, right? And with these, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, students can get a closer view. You can really take your students to wherever in the world you'd want them to go. This can also be great for science as well. There's tons of places that you could take students to talk about different science content. So hopefully you're having some fun with this. Take a few more seconds to explore this VR field trip of the candy store, thinking about those questions, those prompting questions, and then maybe we just have a group discussion. Maybe we ask students to share what they explored, what they observed, or maybe you pair this with an additional activity and ask them to respond that way instead. All right, awesome work, everybody. All right, are there any questions about any of the sample activities? Anything that we tried out for both math and science content? There's some love for the VR field trips in the chat. You said VR is your favorite feature for Nearpod. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's awesome. There's so many great VR field trips. A lot of our pre-made math and science lessons already have the VR field trips built in. And then you can always include your own. So you can always take those lessons and make edits and changes and add in your own. Or you could, create your own lessons from the very beginning and add your own there too. You wish you could use your own VR videos through Nearpod. Well, what you could do is you could copy and paste the link to your own VR videos into Nearpod as web content. So it might not embed directly, but it would then open up a separate window and allow students to access it within the lesson itself. So feel free to take those links to your own VR field trips or your own VR videos and put them into Nearpod as web content. Whenever you're editing or creating lessons in Nearpod, you can just find web content from the list of activities and content you can add, and then simply paste the URL in the lesson, and that's it. That's all you have to do. It's pretty simple. All right, everybody. Okay, so remember that the Nearpod library is going to be your go-to spot to find all of this amazing content. Everything that we've sampled today, everything that's available to you is going to be in that Nearpod library, and you're going to be able to find all that content there. I always recommend doing a couple different filter or keyword searches to narrow down what you're looking for. Because we do have so much content in our library, sometimes it takes a few tries to really narrow that down. When you're in the Nearpod library, remember that you can search by featured lessons, which is going to be anything that's relatively new or has been recently added to our library, as well as anything that's relevant for the time of the year. Then you can filter by grade, by subject, or use a keyword search. You can even search by specific standards. So if you're looking for something that is specific for math and science and certain standards, you can go and you'll click the little blue filter by standard button in the upper right-hand corner, and then you'll be able to choose which standards you search for based on grade, subject, and strand. So I highly recommend taking some time after today's session is over to either review the sample lessons that you pulled from those math or science hyperlinked slides, or just generally go into the Nearpod library and search for the content that you might want to utilize with your students. You can pull all those lessons into your Nearpod account, and then you can use those lessons exactly how they're designed, or again, make edits and changes to those before launching. And if you want to create your own content, you can certainly do that too. You can add your own content to those lessons that you pull from the library, or you can just build your own lessons from the very beginning. So building them from scratch is an option too. But I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. You'll find a lot of great math and science content in our library for all different grade levels. One of the other things that I want to talk to you about is being able to keep your lessons organized in folders. So once you start to add lessons to your library, or maybe create your own lessons too, you can keep those lessons organized into folders. In order to add them to folders, you can either drag and drop them in your Nearpod account, or hover over the lesson, select the 3-dot menu, and select Add To, and then Folder. That way you can keep everything organized. You can know exactly what lessons you have in your library and be able to easily access them to share them with your students. So I highly recommend using that option, keeping everything neat and organized. It kind of operates like a Google Drive, and you can explore that when you're in your Nearpod account. All right, everybody, I'm going to give you a couple minutes of workshop time now. I believe we have enough time. We've got about 10 more minutes left in this session. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes of workshop time before we start to wrap this up for the day. Maybe you're going in to review those lessons you pulled earlier. Maybe you're going to go straight into your Nearpod library and start searching for content there. Maybe you want to start making edits or changes, or maybe creating your own content too. Whatever you want to work on, whatever's standing out to you, whatever you're excited about from this session, I want you to try to put that into practice right now. I'm going to open up a separate window, and I'm going to go to my Nearpod account to set a timer. So 5 minutes of independent workshop time. I'm going to stay quiet while you work. I'm using the quick launch timer so you can see how much time we have left. When we come back together, we're going to start to wrap this up with some final resources and next steps. But have some fun working on this. Again, remember that practice makes progress with Nearpod. So open up a separate window or tab and see if you can practice some of the things that you've learned today. And then again, will stay quiet while you're working, but let me know if you have any questions. You can put them in the chat. All right. Great. Yep, everybody participated in this live lesson, got to see what this was like. You were maybe spent some time saving lessons and organizing them into your library. Great. You looked for videos and you created a folder for your classes. Awesome. You used the VR in the classroom, and that's your biggest takeaway, the use of VR. Great. Videos, how to incorporate GIFs, and you're excited to start exploring more ideas and trying it with your students. Love to hear it. You created folders. You love the VR. I've played with Nearpod, but I feel more confident, and I'm excited about starting my library for science and math first 6 weeks this weekend. Yay! And I promise you, if you spend just some time setting up these lessons and getting everything ready to go and organized, it's going to save you so much time and effort in the long run and allow you to be able to really share these engaging lessons, videos, and activities with your students. Nice work, everybody. All right, I wish we had time to read through more of these, but thank you to those of you that shared. We're going to go ahead and start to wrap this up officially. So remember that you can use Nearpod for both math and science content. There's so much to explore in the library and so many great creative ways to use this. Remember, once you have these lessons and videos and activities ready to go, you can share them with your students and gather their data, and then utilize that data to drive your instruction going forward. If you ever need additional support, you can go to nearpod.com/resources or nearpod.com/help. You also can always get in touch with our Nearpod team at support@nearpod.com. So thank you all so much for being here and learning with me today. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties at the start, and thank you for your patience. I'm glad we were able to get through everything together as a group, and you all did a fantastic job participating and following along. If you have any feedback, we appreciate it. Feedback is a gift to us and our entire professional services team here at Nearpod. So this was a specialized PD. So you can say specialized PD for core subjects, math and science. And my name, which is Jess San Giorgio. This is completely optional. I also know that you've been given a survey to fill out for your district, so you can do both. If you don't have time to do the Nearpod one, that's okay. Totally up to you. I will stick around for another minute or two if you have any final questions. But otherwise, thank you again so much for being here. Please take care, stay safe, and have a great rest of your day and weekend, everybody.